Hi, I'm Lily, and I'm 27 years old. I lost both my parents in a car accident when I was really young. Since they didn't have any relatives to take care of me, I ended up in an orphanage. I stayed there for about 3 years until my new parents adopted me. They turned out to be really wealthy, so I had a pretty comfortable life from then on. They didn't want the adoption to be a big deal, so they kept it private and just wanted to do good without drawing attention. When I turned 18 and got my own place, my parents decided to travel around Europe to grow their business. That was when I met Mark, my ex-husband. We met in college and immediately got along. He was always so cheerful and caring, and after spending some time together, I started liking him even more. We dated, and everything seemed perfect, except for one thing: Mark's family didn't like me. The first time I met them, we had just graduated. Mark didn't want to introduce me until we both had steady jobs, so we were both settled in life. He warned me that his parents could be very judgmental, and he wanted me to make a good impression. I was nervous but didn't mind. By the time he introduced me, we'd been dating for 4 years, and we were even engaged. I figured his parents would probably not be happy about that, since they hadn't even known me as his girlfriend yet. I remember stressing about it the night before we were supposed to meet his parents. "They're going to hate me," I said. "They won't, I promise." "Do you really think they won't be shocked when they find out we're engaged?" "Well, yeah, but I don't think it'll be that big of a deal." "Are you serious? You were nervous to introduce me because you know how judgmental they are, and you think telling them we're engaged won't make it worse?" "Look, even if they do judge you, will it really matter?" "It won't matter to me, but I'm not sure about you. You always seem so careful about what they think." "I promise it won't affect me, Lily." "Okay, if you say so, but do you think we should just not tell them we're engaged yet? Maybe wait a month or so?" "I'm fine with whatever you want to do. I think we should keep it a secret for now. I'll do whatever I can to make a good impression on them." "You don't have to worry, I'll be there with you the whole time." I was so anxious because I knew Mark was worried about how his parents would react, and I was starting to understand why. You see, his family was very rich and only accepted people who were wealthy like them. The way I was living back then didn't meet their standards. I hadn't told Mark much about my family, and now, I felt like I didn't even need to. I wanted them to like me for who I was, not because of how much money I had. I thought they'd like me, but I was wrong. We decided to meet at a fancy restaurant. Mark held my hand as we entered, and I kept my engagement ring on a necklace to hide it. When we sat down, his parents already looked upset. Mark warned me they were picky about being on time, and we were 2 minutes late. His parents gave me a cold look and ignored me while talking to Mark. I felt really small. The longer they ignored me, the more I wanted to leave. Eventually, Mark spoke up to get their attention. "Mom, Dad, you can't keep talking to me. This is Lily, my wonderful girlfriend." "Oh, hello, it's nice to meet you both." "Hi. I wish I could say the same." "Mom, what?" "I'm just being honest." "So, Lily, I heard you and Mark met in college, is that right?" "Yes, we did. We had some classes together." "Ah, and how did you manage to go to college? I know tuition is very high, and it's not easy to get in." "Dad, that's enough. You will not speak to your father like that. He's asking a very reasonable question. Lily, please answer him." "I got a scholarship. I'm really grateful for it because not only did I learn a lot, but I also got to meet Mark, which has been one of the best things that happened to me." "Of course, it's one of the best things for you. He's rich, and that's what you need. At least you're smart because you're not all that attractive." "That's enough, we're leaving. Come on, Lily." Mark grabbed my hand, and we walked out. I couldn't believe how rude his parents were. I was so shocked. I didn't know what to feel. The car ride home was quiet because Mark was angry. When we got back, Mark checked in on me, but honestly, I didn't know how to feel. I'd tried so hard to look nice and be respectful, but Paula and Joe had already made up their minds about me. Mark didn't talk to his parents for a while after that. They sent him a message saying we were disrespectful for walking out on them at lunch. Mark didn't reply, but about a month later, he texted them to tell them that we were engaged. They weren't happy about it, but Mark told them they wouldn't hear from him again if they said anything negative about me. They offered to pay for our wedding, but only if they could make all the decisions. Mark and I didn't want that, so we decided to elope instead. My parents were in Europe at the time, and they knew we were planning to elope. They were just happy for us, and they even sent us a gift. Mark raised an eyebrow at the expensive painting they sent, but I just brushed it off as them being wealthy enough to afford it. After we got married, we met Mark's parents, Paula and Joe, at a party they hosted for their anniversary. They invited us to celebrate, and I was actually kind of happy they invited me, even though they didn't like me. At the party, though, no one spoke to me. It was even worse than just being ignored by a few people. About 30 people completely ignored me. I stayed close to Mark, but no one even tried to talk to me. If I tried to speak to someone, they'd look me up and down and walk away. Or just keep talking to Mark like I wasn't there. By the end of the night, I couldn't hold back the tears. I was humiliated and disgusted by the way everyone was treating me. At the end of the night, Paula and Joe gave a speech. They started by saying how grateful they were for almost everyone in the room. That was the first jab at me. They kept making comments like that throughout the speech, and the guests laughed along. I couldn't take it anymore and just got up and left. I called an Uber and went home, crying the whole way back. I kept crying until Mark got home. When Mark got back, he was upset and angry. "Why did you leave like that? Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was for me? What are you talking about? Don't act like you don't know, Lily. I had to deal with my parents yelling at me, and people feeling sorry for me because I'm with you. Are you serious right now? Don't you care about how embarrassing it was for me? I was ignored by everyone, and your parents made fun of me during their speech. How am I supposed to be okay with that? I'm not saying they were right, but you could have just stuck it out. I would have talked to them about it afterward. And what would that have done for me?" I felt completely humiliated. Everyone was laughing at me, and it felt like a nightmare. I told Mark that he had no idea what it was like to be in that position. "It's easy for you to talk about it like it's no big deal. My parents want an apology from you, and I want one too," I said. "I'm not going to apologize," Mark replied. "I'll only apologize if they do." "Apologize to you? Why? You always defend me. This should be no different," I said, confused. "This is different. You humiliated my family at the party, and now you're saying your own parents humiliated me, your husband, in front of everyone. Maybe my parents were right about you. You're impossible," Mark said before going to sleep in the guest bedroom. I was hurt and confused. Why had he suddenly changed so much? He had always been the one to stand up for me, especially when his parents made me uncomfortable. But after I walked out of the dinner, it seemed like he didn't care at all. He didn't talk to me for a week. During that time, I got a lot of messages from his parents calling me ungrateful and an embarrassment. I tried to talk to Mark, but he refused to speak to me. Eventually, I apologized to both him and his parents. Even though it felt humiliating, I did it because I loved him and didn't want this to be the end of us. Things didn't improve, though. Mark's parents had retired and hosted weekly family dinners. The first time I went with him, as soon as I stepped into their house, the atmosphere turned awkward. Paula was busy, so she didn't notice me right away, but Marley and the rest of his siblings glanced at me without saying a word. Mark just left me standing by myself while he caught up with everyone. When Paula finally came downstairs, she saw me and stormed over to me. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Excuse me?" I said, confused. "I didn't invite you. I invited Mark to a family dinner," she said. "You're not part of this family. An orphan like you doesn't belong here." What do you mean by that?" I asked. "I've done a background check on you. You're poor and not worthy of being in my son's life. You'll never fit in with us." "Why, because I'm not rich like you?" I asked. "What about the fact that I make your son happy?" "Happiness doesn't bring money. You'll never fit in with our circles," she snapped. "Maybe I don't need to fit in with you," I said. "I value who people are, not their wealth. You never even tried to get to know me before judging me." "I'm glad I don't have to," Paula said. "Now, here's some money. Get yourself an Uber and leave." I stared in shock as Mark handed me the money. He turned back to his mother, who smirked at me. Tears welled up in my eyes as I turned around and walked out. The Uber ride home was another tearful one. I didn't understand why Mark had changed. Was this his way of making up for the party? Why was he defending his parents instead of me? I wanted to scream at him, but I knew that would only make things worse. So, I stayed quiet. When Mark came back home, he didn't speak to me. My heart was breaking. I felt so alone. He probably expected another apology from me, but I couldn't do it. After what Paula had said, I thought I deserved an apology from him. For 2 weeks, we didn't speak. It was hard, but eventually, I got used to the silence. During this time, Mark's family continued hosting their weekly dinners, and I stayed home, alone, which was honestly fine by me. One night, my parents video called me. "Hey, sweetie, how's everything going?" my dad asked. "It's not good," I said. "Why, what's going on?" my mom asked. "I don't think you can help me with this, but thanks for offering," I said. "Where's Mark? Why isn't he helping?" my dad asked. "That's the problem, he's part of it." "Could you explain what's going on?" my mom asked. "Well, Mark's parents are wealthy and really snobby. They think I'm some poor girl who'll never live up to their standards, so they've been humiliating me every time I see them." "What? That's awful," my mom said, furious. "And what about Mark? What's he been doing through all this?" my dad asked. "I didn't tell them about you guys because I knew they'd judge me for it," I said. "I wanted them to like me for who I am, not because of my wealth. But Mark, he's siding with them. He thinks I was wrong for standing up for myself." "Honey, are you sure this is the man you want to be with?" My mom asked. I love him a lot, but this isn't how I want it to be. We haven't spoken in 2 weeks, and honestly, I'm okay with that, I confessed. Alright, sweetie, I'll have one of my friends reach out, don't worry, we might actually be able to help you get some sweet revenge. Revenge? What do you mean? I asked, puzzled. Well, your dad and I are coming to visit next week. We plan to take you and Patrick on a vacation, but now we'll just take you. More time for us to be together. Really? Oh my god, I can't wait to see you both in person again. That was a much-needed lift to my spirits. After catching up, Dad mentioned he'd help with the situation. He asked about the family dinners and where they were being held. Conveniently, one of their dinners would be in a restaurant the week my parents arrived. I got the location details from Patrick's email. They were always so open with that information, and I passed it along to my parents. My mom's lawyer friend also got in touch to start the divorce paperwork. When my parents arrived in the States, we met for lunch, then they sent me off for a spa day, entirely paid for, while they made plans to confront my in-laws. Dad and Mom showed up at the restaurant where Patrick's family was dining. According to Dad, when they walked in, Paula and Marley were taken aback as they recognized him. This is how the conversation went. Hello, Dad greeted. Oh my gosh, Mr. Burns, what brings you here? Marley asked, surprised. I just happened to see some familiar faces and thought I'd join you, Dad replied casually. Familiar faces? Who are you talking about, Mr. Burns? Paula asked. Well, I see Patrick, Dad said. Patrick stood up, and they exchanged pleasantries. A pleasure to meet you. My daughter has spoken a lot about you. Speaking of, where is she? Your daughter? Paula asked, confused. I don't think she's here. Oh, but she should be, right? She's married to Patrick. Wait, your daughter is Ingrid? But she never mentioned, Paula started, clearly shocked. That's right, Dad replied. She's married to Patrick, and, by the way, I'm her father, and, yes, we adopted her. You're her father? Paula stammered. Yes, and it seems the problem was you, not her, Dad said. What do you mean? Paula asked, defensive. She didn't want you to treat her nicely just because of her background, Dad said, handing Patrick the divorce papers. Here, she asked me to give these to you. With that, Dad and Mom walked out. A few phone calls later, investors pulled out of Marley's business, and it began to crash. Watching it all fall apart was satisfying, knowing they had mocked me for being an orphan. Afterward, I got a flurry of nasty texts from Patrick's family, while others begged me to talk to my dad and reverse what had happened. Patrick, thankfully, signed the divorce papers without protest. My parents and I went on a long vacation, and I had the time of my life. Although it hurt to lose Patrick, I was grateful for the lessons learned and the support my parents gave me. It was clear that standing up for myself was the right choice, and I was excited to see what else life had in store for me.